Late Shift is a tense and fascinating insight into the working conditions of nurses within a healthcare system, and in this particular case, it's focused on Switzerland. It centres on the empathetic and competent nurse, Floria, played by the wonderful Leonie Benesch, who you may have seen in the Teachers' Lounge. Floria has to do the floor rounds, treating 28 patients and trying to fulfil all their needs during a night shift. Each patient has their own specific needs, whether it's life-saving medicine or a cup of tea to make them feel better. Each patient has their own individual needs, and for them, they are the most important thing happening in that hospital. Floria has to deal with all these demands, whether it's finding someone's reading glasses or making sure a patient has their medicine at the right time. Late Shift is directed by Petra Volpe and it has recently been released in UK's cinemas on limited release. It has also been selected as Switzerland's official submission for Best International Feature Film Academy Awards. In this video, I'm going to give a quick overview of the plot, as well as my collective thoughts of the film itself, and then I'll have a look at how well it could do in the Oscar race. If you're new to my channel, my name is Paul, and I review the best of world cinema, and I follow the race for Best International Feature Film Academy Award, from countries selecting their official submission to the final winner. So let's roll and review that film. Late Shift is set in a Swiss hospital where Floria has to do nurse rounds late at night, dealing with 28 different patients, complaints, needs, and compliments, and making sure they feel cared and attended to while they're in hospital. However, like many hospitals, there is a huge shortage of nurses who are available to work and often have to call in at the last minute sick, therefore leaving Floria with one other staff member to do the rounds. Floria has to juggle the competing demands of different patients. They all have their own importance, whether it's ensuring a patient has their particular medicine at a particular time, whether they are trying to comfort a patient as they receive medical care, or whether it's small things like making sure the private insurance patient has his cup of tea on time, or the outpatient has her reading glasses that the mother feels are left in the hospital. While some of these are trivial and some of these are life-saving, they are all important to the role of the nurse. It's about not only keeping people alive and healthy, but it's also showing that care and attention. Floria has to juggle these different demands, no matter how trivial, because at the end of the day, these demands keep people alive, but also feel comfort as they're receiving life-saving medical treatment. The film follows her around as she juggles these competing demands, choosing how she prioritizes, looking at the consequences of each prioritization, and how she delivers the best possible care that she can within the strict and challenging environment she is working in.
Ich glaube, ihm geht's nicht so gut.
Hallo, ich bin gleich bei Ihnen. Ich komme nachher gleich zu Ihnen.
I think the success of this film hangs predominantly on the remarkable performance of Leonie Benesch. And if you've seen the film The Teachers' Lounge, which was Oscar nominated, you'll know she is really good at playing characters who have jobs which have to keep the stress and tension within in order to fulfill their role in society. And of course, her character is having to constantly be on the move. She's pushing equipment, trying to see as many patients as possible and give them the best possible care they can. And meanwhile, she has relatives of patients and patients themselves constantly bugging her, saying, I want this, I need this, why won't you update us on this? And it's about how she's able to navigate this quite challenging situation. And of course, some of those people find her so frustrating because they're not the ones being dealt with immediately. They are not the priority. However, there are other people who recognize her role and see her as an angel, which is really good to see. And I think this film could have easily slipped into big dramatic narrative points in order to make it entertaining. However, it never quite goes there. There is drama, just like you would have every day, and there's dullness, and there's a sense of urgency. It's really trying to portray what it's like to work in such a shift in a hospital, as opposed to a form of entertainment. The film is directed by Petra Volpe, who does a really great job. Her previous film, The Divine Order, which Switzerland also submitted for the Oscars that year, feels like this is a step up from that film and is a bit more elevated. Both films are great watches, but this one feels like it's developed further and has much more impact. There's quite a lot of commentary about this feeling like a one-take, continuous shot film, like Boiling Point or Victoria, because it manages to recreate that tension. However, it's quite apparent it's not. It does not aim to be, and it's quite easily edited. So it gives that impression of a one-take film because it conveys the elements of that format, but in fact, it's very well edited and directed. Late Shift not only just represents the situation of nurses, but it also explores wider debates in healthcare, such as the difference in standards between private and public funded healthcare, as well as the role of the individual and the responsibility of their own health. But it's quite apparent the film is made to make one particular point, is the fact there is a deficit of 13 million nurses across the world, and that's something that needs to be tackled, because if we're expecting to live longer and have the care we want, we need the people to do it. I do think it misses a trick because it doesn't explore the philosophical questions around, do we have to live so long? The focus has always been on living as long as possible. However, that can only work if we have the highest quality of life as possible. If we're all working till 80 in very stressful, low-paid jobs with poor health, that's not necessarily the great situation to live in. And therefore, I'm surprised the film didn't tap into that a little bit, because it's starting to suggest those questions, but never really challenges that idea. I think I had one complaint about this film, is that the music is very heavy-handed. You can feel it trying to almost exploit your emotions. And I feel it's such a strong film in terms of acting and direction and editing. It really didn't need that. And I feel that's where there's a slight letdown. However, that's just a minor quibble. I think Leonie Benesch's performance is just so strong, it doesn't need to battle with a heavy-handed score. However, I still really think this is a great piece of cinema, and I would give Late Shift 4 stars. As I said at the start of the video, Switzerland submitted Late Shift as their official Oscar submission for the 98th Academy Awards. Switzerland are one of the stronger nations in the Oscars of all time, partly because they've submitted films by Jean-Luc Godard, for example, and they are actually ranked as the 18th most successful country, with 2 Oscar wins, 3 additional nominations, and 3 additional shortlistings. However, this is quite historic performance because their last win was in 1990 for The Journey of Hope, so it's been some time since they've been challenging for that Oscar. And if you look at Switzerland's performance in the last 10 years, there's only been one film that's made the shortlist, and that was the remarkable My Life as a Courgette, which means Switzerland are the 42nd most successful country in the last 10 years. And I have a feeling they really need to push a decent film through in order to improve on their performance. I think Late Shift could well be that film. It's a small film. It's only just got US distribution and has been playing in UK cinemas to an okay response. I feel it's that sort of film that will grab attention. Leonie Benesch is in it, and she's had 2 films that has been at least nominated for the Oscar, The White Ribbon and The Teacher's Lounge. As well as this, I also feel it's a film that covers a really universal issue, and that will probably grab voters' attention. And it's the sort of film that is small but has momentum, and it should hopefully get on that final 15 shortlist. It might be a bit too much to ask for it to be nominated. However, I think this is the strongest Swiss submission since My Life as a Courgette, and it's the sort of film I would love to at least see on the shortlist. And for the race for the 98th Academy Award for Best International Feature Film, I of course only seen 2 submissions, Czechia and Switzerland, and this so far is my favourite. So that's enough from me, but have you seen Late Shift? If you have, put in the comments what your thoughts of the film. Did you really enjoy it? Do you think it's representative of the nursing world? To see how well Late Shift does in the Oscar race, and for more reviews and news for the Best International Feature Film Oscar race, please do subscribe to my channel, Global Film Pool. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.